Talk to us about the regional conference that was held in the Rose Bowl with President Kimball.
Yes, I'm glad you reminded me of that because that was such a highlight in our lives. The church, for a period of time, had regional conferences, and I think this was probably one of the earlier ones, but they had let us know that the a regional conference would be held in the Rose Bowl, which seats for football games, it seats 100,000 plus people. So it was a big venue, and I don't know how many stakes were involved in that region, but I'm sure there were a lot of stakes because a lot of people came. But since that was within the boundaries of the Pasadena stake, and in those early years of our involvement in West Arcadia Ward, we were part of the Pasadena stake, and then later divided into the Arcadia stake. But at that time it was Pasadena stake, and Dad was given an assignment to help make the physical arrangements for the speakers of the conference. And so they had a raised, elevated area that had bounds, and that's where the general authorities, the speakers, those who were conducting, and so forth, would be doing it from that. So there were stairs that were built up to that, but it was a good-sized area, and it was covered like a tent for comfort. And President Spencer W. Kimball was president of the church, and he was going to be at that regional conference. The president of the church did not attend every regional conference because we went to later regional conferences, and there would be other general authorities, not the prophet, there. But for this one, President Kimball himself was to be there, and so we had a big, comfortable maroon chair that we thought would be fitting for the prophet to sit on. And Dad went out personally and bought a little maroon pillow that would match the chair that would be there to make it a little bit more comfortable for the president of the church to be there. I don't remember what other general authorities were there. It was such an honor. That's what my mind captures, is the president of the church. And so I think we must have had 2-day meetings, Saturday and Sunday. I'm a little hazy, but I think I'm correct on that. That we have a picture in our study today that was a candid shot that Dad or somebody took of President Kimball walking inside the Rose Bowl area, approaching this stand where he would be seated, and members of our stake were privileged to be those that would escort him. And we were touching the prophet. It was a great, great experience for us, and a great conference that we had, great attendance. And wherever the truth is, Satan tries to be a detractor, and this was no exception, because of all the thousands of people that came, Latter-day Saints, with an air of respect and love and reverence to this meeting. Out in the parking lot, there was a tiny little group of just a few people, detractors, and led by a woman called Sonia Johnson. She was one who throughout many years tried to cast aspersions upon the church. And she was there picketing that out in the parking lot in front of the structure of the Rose Bowl. She was there with her little group picketing and making their presence felt and heard. And of course, I guess you can't blame the media, because they're there for news, and anything that's different or unusual, they zero in on. So Sonia Johnson made the news with the local newspapers. They took pictures of her, they talked to her, and somewhere along the way, with all this furor that she was trying, pretty unsuccessfully, to disrupt this great regional conference, one of the major news outlets, a reporter from one of the major news outlets, came to Dad and said, "Could you find us a mother and a daughter, member of the church, and someplace for us to interview them? Because we would like to have the opinion of just a lay member of the church on some of the issues of the day." And Dad said, "Certainly, I will." Who did he have, Julie or Karen?
I wasn't there.
I can't remember. I think it was Julie. But if I'm wrong, I stand corrected. Then I think Dad came and found Julie and I and took us down in the basement where the teams would go, as a place that would be quiet and uninterrupted. And we were interviewed by this newspaper man. He wanted to know such things as, how do you feel that the men hold the priesthood and the women have no authority, that they're subservient to the man? And how do you feel as a young woman growing up, how you are bound and held and disenfranchised by church policies? That was the tone. Those weren't the words, but that was the tone of what he was saying. And Dad chose wisely, because Julie and I were both very conversant with the gospel and with gospel principles, but we were fully in support, as we should have been, as we loved being with all the programs of the church. And so we gave our very positive responses when he was fishing for something negative, something out of line, something against the hierarchy of the church. And he talked to a mother and a daughter who were lovingly and happily compliant with all the tenets of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we laughed after that interview was over, because we said, I bet we'll never see a word that we said in print. And it was true. He wasn't looking for somebody who would agree with and support the doctrines of the gospel and the doctrine of the priesthood. He was looking for somebody who would be rebellious and felt like they were disenfranchised or held down or stifled in their dealings within the church, and he didn't find it from us. But it was a fun experience for mother and daughter to be the two that were chosen. And if I'm incorrect and it was Karen instead, I apologize. I really can't remember which one of my daughters it was at that point.
Okay. I seem to recall something about President Kimball's shoes.
You'll have to come up with that.
As I recall the story, they're sitting at the conference and Dad's right there on the front row or whatnot, and President Kimball crossed his legs, and Dad noticed that he had a hole in his shoes. And Dad walked up to either him or one of his escorts and gave him some money to buy President Kimball a new pair of shoes that didn't have a hole in it. So,
Well,
anything else about that conference?
I can't remember any more details, but we've treasured the picture of him because it's so informal, and it shows in the background all the masses of people behind, but we were right up there with him rubbing shoulders with him, Dad holding his arm and helping direct him to his seat. And that pillow, nobody wanted it, so we had that pillow. I don't know what finally came of it, but the pillow that Dad had bought for the prophet to make his seat a little bit more comfortable ended up in our house after all was said and done, and we lovingly remembered that as something that we'd been able to share with the prophet when he was here.
Good.